All right, excellent. All right, everybody, this is another edition of the Web News, and this comes hot off the coattails, if you will, of me writing my HTML crash course. So I've been writing an HTML crash course script for quite a while. I've never done this before, so hopefully it turns out well, and hopefully this is the way I'm supposed to be doing it. But anyway, I've been writing it, and I've been thinking about structure. So one of the things I do when I write an article for SEO purposes specifically is I really focus on the structure. I look up the headings, I look up what the competitors have covered, what headings they have, and because heading hierarchy is very important, which I won't get into right now, but it's very important for SEO. And so I usually do that. And I did not do that for the crash course. And as I got into the weeds of it, I started thinking like maybe I do need to have this structure. But the issue is as I'm typing, I'm realizing even though I don't have a formal structure, I'm thinking of the next topic to cover. And as I'm writing, I realize, oh shoot, I actually shouldn't, in my opinion, cover that next topic next because there's a learning order to be considered. I'm suddenly using attributes, for example, when I haven't talked about what an attribute is. And that's fine. And I do this once or twice in the crash course as it sits right now. It's still in progress, where I like throw in something like I throw in an attribute and people might be like, what's that? And then the very next sentence is, hey, you may have noticed this. This is an attribute and this is how it works. Right. So it's slowly introducing them. But in my opinion, I'm not a fan of courses and things where you almost take a tangent because you as a learner have no idea what's going on. It's almost like you take a tangent and you just start using stuff like as if you know it, and then they teach it to you later. And so I was like, if I do a structure, I think that's going to end up happening a bunch. And so I just started paying attention to that sort of mental, the next thing I want to do is this. And I corrected that so many times. It was like, the next thing I want to do is attributes. Oh, shoot. No, I can't do that. I got to do this first. Oh, the next thing I want to do is inline styles or whatever, something. Oh, shoot. I can't do that because I haven't done this. And so this happens over and over. I was going to do an HTML boilerplate. And then it's, oh my God, I haven't covered this thing. And so it's okay. We got to rewind here a bunch. And so that's today's web news is learning order. And I just want to have that discussion over what we think about the importance of learning order and how it could potentially mess things up. Because as a final thing that I'll say, Mike and I preach the three pillars all the time, although there's a crack in those pillars, as we mentioned. But the three pillars, HTML, CSS, JavaScript in their vanilla form, that's all front end, but you can build some pretty nice websites with that amount of technology under your belt. And the thing is that a lot of people skip that, go right to React, go right to whatever, Vue, Svelte, doesn't matter. And then they've just circumvented what we said, and they're definitely jumping into the deep end. And I am not a fan of that. And so I guess we like that's discussion for today is like learning order, the importance of it, and also what about the people that do jump into the deep end?
I think, like for a traditional learner, let's go back to math class. When you're learning fractions, right? You need to know fractions before you learn algebra because you need to figure out why you can take the 3 and put it on the other side and divide both sides by 3 to cancel. Like you need to have that basic foundational knowledge to learn the next part. So a traditional learner in math would need that fractions before algebra. That's how we learn math. So for them, the order is extraordinarily important. So when you're doing your course, and I think if we talk about the general public, I think the general public is probably more likely to be traditional learners because that's how they learned their entire lives than outside of that being non-traditional, which is like learning in different ways, learning from back to front to back. Like there's plenty of people that did not respond well to school. Let's be clear there as well. Like there's plenty of people that did not like that type of learning and it didn't resonate with them and they weren't able to learn. Whereas jumping into something more relevant, let's say in math, like instead of learning the traditional way, they jumped into calculus right away because it's helped solve their issue with whatever calculus can help solve. And then because like they jumped into that, they had to learn a bunch of stuff to get up there. And now they know calculus because they were forced to learn it because of some interest that they have. There's plenty of people like that. So that's where I would split those two buckets. Like the people that need that relevance and thrive in that relevance of learning something that solves their problem, which would be the more like jump into React style learner, and the more traditional learner that needs the foundation before they can jump to the next spot. And so I think it's important to teach both. Now, should you teach both? Absolutely not. I think a person that starts creating a learning style needs to choose the learning style that works for them, first of all, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to teach one learning style that didn't work for you. That doesn't make any sense. So you need to teach the style that works for you, and you need to stick to that style and perfect it and become better and better and better and better. And then someone else, because of the fact that we're in the web development space, there are a million courses out there. But that's not a bad thing in the terms of competition. That's a great thing because everyone learns differently. Everyone can resonate with different things. And I really do think that everyone brings their own biases, their own ways that they've learned. Someone will benefit from that. So your way of learning HTML and what you're seeing as learning HTML is going to benefit someone regardless of what you choose. And I think it's important to stick to your guns, find what you would have wanted to, the resource you would have wanted when you were starting. That's really the most important thing, in my opinion, for someone that's creating a course, is to create that resource. And that should be a path to success.
You know, it's honestly, a really good point, because if I tried to teach in a way that I didn't like to be taught, or that I'll give an example. So I actually made a LinkedIn post about this, about when this happened to me, because this happened to me yesterday as of recording this. And I was like, man, this order thing, education order, whatever you want to call it, is like really crucial. And like you mentioned, Mike, like traditional schooling, and how traditional schooling generally does this. And I actually have a comment in, or a part of my post, that says that if the lesson plans were not very laid out, I really sucked at whatever the heck they were doing. I have a real bad problem with when a lesson, and I understand sometimes this has to happen, but when a teacher goes, today's lesson is lesson 6, so we've done 5 already. Number 6 here, it's not really going to make much sense, but bear with me because by lesson 8 it will. It's like, hang on. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be done this way. I know I'm not a teacher, a full-time teacher or something. And there's people that are education ministers or whatever that are going to be smarter than me. But let me tell you, I struggle with that stuff because I need that background information. I need to understand like what is happening, and it's a serious problem for me. I need to know what's going on. And so if I were to somehow try to teach as if someone's jumping into the deep end, I feel as though like I would have to learn how to teach that way, which is weird, and it would be very unnatural, I think. So I agree with you. Because I'll give an example, like I've been trying to learn to golf for 4 years. I'm doing the best I've ever done. That sounds yeah, Matt, you've been playing for 4 years, you're constantly playing, so yeah. Here's the thing is I had like a bad streak this year. I had this point where it was like the worst of the worst. Could barely hit the ball. And that happens naturally in the sport. So it's okay. You have your ups and downs. Maybe that's what it is. And then I just realized one day, I was like, you know what it is? It's because I'm completely built. My swing, my understanding of the game is completely built on not understanding the game, on understanding tips and tricks that I've pieced together. And I said, okay, I'm gonna take a step back here, and I'm gonna go back. And I told my friends that I'm treating it like school, and I started to study the game a bit. Why does the ball go this way? Why does it hook this way? Why does it fade this way? Why does it go here? What am I trying to do here? Because people would say, "Oh, you're trying to hit the ground." What does that mean? Am I trying to like literally smash the ground and then I'm naturally gonna? What does that mean? A lot of tips and tricks, and I didn't understand. Let me tell you, first round out, the score did not go down. And that's another thing I learned, is that as you improve, your actual score statistically will not go down, because you're doing better in other areas, but you're still having issues in others. Like you might putt more, which means like nothing. Like most people have trouble getting it onto the green. If you've improved there and you're still putting 3 or 4 times, your score still sucks. But they're like, pay attention to other markers, like you're not losing as many balls and things. And I started to realize, I was like, oh my God, like I've only bought balls once this year. I used to buy balls like 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 times. This is okay. And I'm doing the best I've ever done. Best I've ever done. Recently broke 90 for the first time. Things like that. And how I did that was I showed up to this one particular course that was extremely dry. and the ball was rolling forever, I played a different game. I was like, okay, did a couple holes here. This place is dry as hell. I'm playing this game differently because I understood how to hit the ball properly and knew it would roll, understood how it would roll, and I did that. Now I'm not a professional. Like I still got games where I shoot 110 and things like that. Totally understand it. That's fine. The point is though, I am like 1,000 times better because I understand what's going on. I got a problem with my game right now. I got this weird, I'm shooting a little too hard left, and I'm able to adapt it on the field. But I don't know, I know enough about why it goes left, but I don't know everything. That's literally on the docket. I'm gonna go learn. And that's what I'm trying to do with this course is a live example is I was writing out what a tag is and equating it to, I like visualization, so equating it to bones and the skeleton and everything. And I thought, okay, now that I've done this, and the visualization is only a couple of sentences, a skeleton and bones is pretty simple. So it's a lot of talking about tags and they close and this is how you name them and this is why you name them and things. And so I'm like, okay, the next thing I'm going to do is a boilerplate. And so I looked up some boilerplates. I got AI to generate a boilerplate too, and I was just researching them. And a lot of the boilerplates are like bringing in CSS, like bringing in link tags with CSS. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to talk about attributes. I'm going to talk about this, talk about that. And then once I got through all those different things, I noticed, I was like, this boilerplate's still too advanced for me, in my opinion, because if I start saying, bear with me for a moment, this links to a CSS sheet. Bear with you for a moment. It's the thing I hated in school. I don't want to really bear with you. I want you to tell me what the heck's going on here, whether it's advanced or not. And again, maybe that's a mistake. But the point is now in the current draft of the course, I have a boilerplate at the end of the lesson, at the end of the whole thing that has things like a link to a CSS style sheet and things. I'm probably just going to throw that in at the end. It might even only make it into the written version. The boilerplate or the thing I think I'm calling it the my first HTML like thing. It's just a quick little section of it. You learn how to do tags. You learn what attributes are. Fantastic. So now we're going to go and put together a page. You know what a head tag is. You know what an HTML tag is. You know what a body tag is. You understand how to nest. That's a big one because you're nesting things in the body primarily. And then, of course, there's all your metadata and things in the head. And there's one new topic here, or there's two new topics. One is the general layout, which is something you just have to memorize and is relatively easy to understand. You have a doc type, you have your HTML, then you have your head, then you have your body. You have to memorize that, totally understand it. But there's something new there. That layout, but the real new thing, the big new thing is that doc type. And you're like, what's that? That was a mystery to me forever because I would always look it up, like when I was first getting started, and I would immediately forget what it was. And in fact, I had to go look it up because I just do it now. It's just a second hand. It's like, oh yeah, doc type, HTML, moving on. And it's, oh, hang on. I have to explain what this is. And so every little bit, and I'm not going to execute this perfectly, but my point is everything is a building block. And I don't want you to go from step 1 to 4 and then back to 2 later. I don't want you to bear with me for a minute. I'm trying to literally get rid of that. And I hope, I sound like I'm tooting my own horn here. This might flop and people might be like, Matt, you're a fool. And that's fine. The thing is that's what I'm trying to teach. And I think you're 100% right, Mike, is that I'm trying to teach the way I would want to be taught because I sincerely think we gloss over things. I even talk about what a file extension is.
I think what you're making, and this could be the title of your course, honestly, is the most accessible HTML course that you'll ever read. That sounds like what you're making, and it's honestly, I would try to maybe a variation of that title, but something like that. It sounds, and maybe that's the series, the most accessible CSS course you'll ever see or you'll ever use or whatever. World's most accessible CSS course. I don't know, whatever. But maybe that's the twist, and maybe that's exactly that. Maybe that's what you wanted. Maybe that's what you've always wanted, where you could sit down and not have any base knowledge and learn CSS. And even when you have base knowledge, the great thing is that you're reinforcing that knowledge and it's giving you that motivating factor because, oh, I know this. And then you're moving through it, right? Teaching something redundantly can be a little bit annoying for some people that are way ahead, but people that are just starting out that know some things, it can actually help them motivate to get to that next stage, right? If they know something in the course, they're going to be like, oh shit, okay, I know this, so I can move on to this next phase. Whereas if they go into it and all of a sudden the first 2 paragraphs, they don't know 80% of what's there. That might gatekeep a lot of people from that course. So there's a lot of positives from the strategy that you're using. And yeah, like again, I think it all comes down to, hey, is this something that I would use, that I would learn from when I was first getting into HTML? And if the
Right.
answer is yes, then someone else will have that same reaction. So I think it's a good strategy. I think the basic foundation of building blocks and having the correct order, and the fact that you're spending extra time on it and trying to get that down is going to pay dividends, or at least has a good chance of paying dividends. Like you said, nothing's a guarantee. People might hate it. Who knows? But the reality is that if you put that extra effort in, usually that gives something back.
And that is the point. Is I like that it's like the most accessible or whatever. I like that
Yeah.
point that you made, because right now I have it named similarly to because we had a podcast episode called HTML Crash Course for Absolute Beginners, and that's what I currently have it titled. I would like to look at the accessibility keyword. Obviously, I have to SEO this a little bit, but the thing is, like, in terms of like accuracy of the English language, like you're right. Like I'm trying to make this a very accessible course. The only thing I gloss over is like VS Code a little bit, and I'm using this tool, but you know what it is. Here's the thing: is like whenever I go to a tutorial today, and someone explains something to me, and this is how a filter works in this CMS. You have to plug into the API, do all this stuff. It's like, all right, spend about 15 minutes reading it, understanding it. It's like, all right, cool. Where do I put this? And no one tells you where to put it, and that drives me up the wall. It's okay, where does this go now? And then I'll put it in there. And way back in the day when jQuery was really popular, and I was still new and didn't understand jQuery code, they wouldn't mention jQuery. They just assume you had it. So I put it in there, and they'd be like, this doesn't work. It's like, all right, fantastic. Now what? And it's, oh, you have to install jQuery, you fool. So I'm not a fool. I literally didn't know it. Like, I am new. I'm not a fool. I am new. Technically, I am a fool in that way, but it's like, I am new, though. It's not like I've been doing jQuery and stuff for 15 years, and then I suddenly just didn't understand jQuery. I even explain HTML as, hey, you're not a programmer. You've never done this before. What we're effectively doing is writing a text document with specific rules. And like, I explain that, and I'm like, go ahead and use Notepad if you want, but I'm going to use VS Code because it looks nicer. And here's the download link and things like that. And so obviously you can't sit there and explain a file extension or what a Word document is to people for an hour, because there needs to be a certain level of like computer competency to do this. But my point is, I want you to be guided through HTML and understanding what it is. And actually, to be honest, that I am struggling with a point of the thing right now where a lot of people will cover a lot of these topics in depth. And I honestly think a lot of this stuff does not need to be covered in a crash course. I'm thinking this is not a crash course, because if I teach 150 topics, the person's going to remember 40 of them. So maybe I need to just drill down on, hey, these are tags, these are this, these are that, these are this, and give you really the tools to then be like, I know I need a tag here, and I don't know what it's called. You can Google that very quickly. You didn't really get too much value from me telling you, and then you forgot. I do have a section with a bunch of tags that I am going to cover. So obviously people are always going to forget things. Like, you're not going to remember on the first go, but it's something that I'm toying with, because I don't want the end of the course to just be like, okay, I'll tell you a bunch of stuff in detail. Here's some rapid fire. I don't want it to sound like that, but we'll see. Again, first time doing this, but hopefully someone out there likes this, because I'm spending a lot of time on it.
Yep. The reality is it probably won't be a lot of the listeners of this, because it's going to be a little bit too basic, like the HTML course. But what we want is for it to be a pipeline for people to get into web development, right? Like, I think that's the real thing that it could provide, is the people that did suffer from a little bit too much jargon in those basic courses. And a lot of people skip HTML in courses now anyway. Like, you just teach it on the side as you're teaching everything else, similar to what we were saying with React. Hopefully what this will do is allow that extra stepping stone for the people that need it, right? So again, it might not be exactly for you, like the people listening to this, because you probably, if you're listening to a web development podcast, you probably have a good foundation in HTML. If you don't, great, this is for you. But if you do, then, you know, it's something that we would love for you to look at and provide feedback on. But the reality is that we're really hoping that this will bring in the next wave, because I think there's not a lot being done for that next wave right now. For example, it's really difficult to get in, like the job market is tough, and just that plus the fact that there just isn't a lot of course material out there for them anymore, at least updated ones. So I think it's a good idea. Hopefully you could suggest it for people out there that are looking to get into web development. And when it's out, it'll be really awesome for us to get feedback on it. But yeah.
And to talk about the accessibility level, we've already produced an audio version, which is obviously you glaze over, so you don't have a visual. But then there's going to be the video, which is what I'm writing the script for. But then I plan on having the written as well, and like have them all tied together. And so it's, if you're a person that doesn't really have time to learn except for when you're on your commute, listen to the audio version. If you're a person that's, I hate video, then, or you don't have the bandwidth for it even, you can just read the text, hopefully. And that's a really good point, Mike, is I've mentioned this before to you, is obviously we have statistics that we pay attention to at the podcast. And I said, I don't think the HTML Crash Course audio podcast is going to actually bring in a lot of people in the first week / the first month, which are like critical points for podcasts. But I do think it's one of those episodes that has staying power, where it's not, it gets all its views in that first week or first month. I feel like it's going to be relevant moving forward to some extent. At some point, obviously it'll be outdated, but I think that's a point, right? Is, hey, in 2 years, someone can look up HTML Crash Course in Spotify, and then, if assuming everything's still happening the way it's happening right now, they can find it, right? They can find it, they can listen to it, and then they might be like, oh, okay, I'll listen to the audio, and then the audio, or the video, and then the video at that point will be done.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I don't know. I feel like we've exhausted. I think we've covered this topic. Like, the order matters if it matters to you, I guess. It's the conclusion of this. But no, it's but it's something that I am passionate about. Is I get really upset when I don't know what to do after I followed the tutorial. I'm like, great, I followed the tutorial and I'm still don't know what the heck's going on. What's going on here? And I want to make it so that people don't have that as little as possible, hopefully. But I think that's it. That's the web news. This is our short form episode. If you want to listen to full episodes, we do those weekly, and sometimes 2 times a week if we have an interview. Our weekly scheduled programming comes on Tuesdays. Our web news comes out on Saturdays right now. It may adjust in the future, and our interviews come out on Thursdays. So go and check those out. And that's it. That's the web news for this week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.